There has been growing frustration within the WWE and more particularly backstage because of a decision that they made a while ago. And honestly, I get it. Like, I genuinely do get it. We're going to have to talk about that because this is one of those things that could easily be avoided. And the reason why it's not being avoided is because WWE and TKO are all about the profits. And obviously, this decision that they made is specifically because of the amount of money that you can make. And obviously, you got to make other people happy. And when you're making other people happy and you're making more money from it, you kind of stick to your guns, even if that means that the creative product might have some shortcomings. Plus, The Rock is firing back, and also there's some hints about The Rock moving forward. And we got to talk about an AEW star who's not being utilized, and there's some news there. So, with that being said, welcome to the Ango Show. Okay, I want to kick things off with AEW before we shift to WWE. Deonna Purrazzo is somebody who is not really being utilized within the company, and obviously AEW, it gets kind of frustrating. As you guys know, I've mentioned this several times on the channel in the past. However, there's some stuff that's come out about Deonna Purrazzo that I want to speak about, because Deonna Purrazzo and her situation in the WWE is really interesting. Or I said WWE, but obviously, you know, I mean AEW. And the reason why I say it's really interesting is because Deonna Purrazzo, according to a new report, just simply doesn't have creative plans within AEW. And this came from Fightful Select. And obviously, you know, Fightful is relatively accurate for the most part. I see very, very few discrepancies with their reporting. However, when it comes to Deonna Purrazzo and AEW, there's no plans to add a third member to the Vendetta. It was said that the Vendetta, Taya Valkyrie and Deonna Purrazzo, they kind of, this information of a third person being out there, you know, to join the group was kind of like a feeler. Deonna Purrazzo has made creative pitches. However, there are no plans for her or Taya Valkyrie. There was never a plan to add a member to the Vendetta. And basically, CMLL just recently had Taya Valkyrie tag team with Lady Frost, which was a very strange decision because Deonna Purrazzo and Taya Valkyrie are a tag team. Deonna Purrazzo is not even getting booked by CMLL, and there is no plans for CMLL to use Deonna. So this came from Fightful Select. There's this belief that basically Deonna Purrazzo is not going to be given an opportunity in the company. A lot of fans are also speculating that Deonna and Taya might be the ones to leave the company once their contracts are free and clear. I think it's too early to speculate on that, but it is a very interesting and it's a very slippery slope because with AEW, they did bring in Deonna and Taya, who were the top knockouts in TNA, and nothing has happened with them. And they're incredibly talented. They're incredibly gifted. And it just seems like the writing is on the wall. And that's very, very unfortunate.
Now would be the best time to remind you that we have a major goal to hit 100,000 subscribers. Over 40% of the viewers who watch this channel are not subscribed. Please click subscribe if you enjoy staying educated on everything with wrestling news.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn our attention to The Rock. Obviously, The Rock is a very big deal within WWE, being a board member. He's the final boss. Now, Triple H, he actually appeared recently today on Sunday Brunch, and he talked about The Rock and his connection to the WWE, and basically, The Rock gets to basically do what he does because he's The Rock, you know? And he was talking about The Rock and basically hinted at the fact that The Rock isn't done with the WWE, despite the fact that John Cena hasn't brought him up, the fact that WWE has not had him on TV since Elimination Chamber. And a lot of people are really, honestly, I've seen a lot of frustration here, and I kind of understand both sides to it, right? A lot of people feel like, hey, obviously The Rock isn't wrestling at WrestleMania, but we are on the road to WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber was really that massive moment that really made WrestleMania feel special. And then since then, we haven't really had acknowledgement of the fact that John Cena sold his soul to The Rock. And, you know, The Rock is actually very, like, he's very, 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 very involved within, like, the social media and stuff. He's out there, he's tweeting, he's on Instagram. Somebody recently was talking shit about CM Punk and The Rock's friendship. The Rock responded to that, and he says that they're good friends. They've become solid buddies, and you know, he's very active, right? But this guy isn't on TV all the time, and things aren't being mentioned here. And so when Triple H is on Sunday Brunch, he's kind of talking about this in the sense that The Rock and WrestleMania, like, there's still way more to come, which is a great thing. But also at the same time, too, You know, man, like last year's WrestleMania had such a very strong build, and The Rock was obviously very involved with that. And now it just seems like The Rock shows up for these moments, but there's really nothing connecting to what we are seeing play out on TV. So I'm hoping that Triple H isn't just sitting here and talking about it and being vocal about it. I hope that WWE and Triple H specifically do have a plan. That's really important. And you don't want to see the WWE make the mistake where you're just utilizing The Rock for these big moments, and that's essentially it. Because trust me, I'm telling you guys right now off the rip, people will have a problem with it in the future. And I think people already do have a problem with it now, because if the follow-up for John Cena selling his soul to The Rock has showed anybody anything, it's that The Rock was only there for the moment and not for the actual story. And I do understand that frustration. Obviously, I'm willing to let it play out, but I do think it could be considered underwhelming to a certain extent, because he's playing such a pivotal moment in what we are seeing play out, obviously. And that's going to take our attention to our next topic. Ladies and gentlemen, SmackDown being 3 hours is causing quite the frustration. According to WrestleVotes Radio, people within WWE's production and creative teams are not thrilled about the third hour. In fact, many insiders are calling the move a major misstep. Instead of giving more rising stars time to shine, the extra hour has apparently led to weaker pacing, filler content, and creative fatigue. Now, obviously, and I say obviously very, very strictly here, I think everybody knows that 3 hours of wrestling could be a drag. Now, I don't necessarily mind when the Raw show was 3 hours, because under Triple H, Raw being 3 hours was great. SmackDown being 3 hours is inconsistent. Sometimes you get some really, really good stuff, and sometimes I think you could very much see that creative fatigue. So the fact that there's a lot of people frustrated about this, it's insane. Now, obviously, I mentioned it in the beginning of the video. The third hour generates more advertising revenue for USA Network. And obviously, this move isn't permanent, but WWE and USA benefiting off that third hour in advertising, I don't know if this will ever go back to 2 hours, quite frankly. I know they're saying it's not permanent, but I genuinely believe to a certain extent this could very well turn out to be permanent. And obviously, for me, as somebody who complains about it, I don't necessarily like it. I think SmackDown is an easy watch. In fact, if Raw and SmackDown and NXT and Dynamite and Collision were all 3 hours long, but it was during the weekdays, I wouldn't care. But Friday being 3 hours on a Friday, SmackDown being 3 hours on a Friday, that's a problem. It's a problem. It's too much. And I think WWE internally being, like people in WWE not necessarily liking it, I think that echoes a lot of what other people have said. Now, only time will tell. Will WWE figure this out, or will WWE continue pandering for all the businesses and the advertisers? Or will they go back to 2 hours and do what's right? 2 hours SmackDown, 3 hour Raw, or 2.5 hour Raw, it's completely fine. But sometimes the creative fatigue comes from the fact that you just have so much to juggle, and that's a very difficult task. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show.